my good people of YouTube. I am here to present some findings to you. I may have went a little overboard, I will admit. But we are here to try to predict this upcoming season of Survivor 50, in the hands of the fans. Now, this is the first All-Star season since Winners at War, and so I am very excited. And what we can do is that with my little simulation videos, since we already know all these people, I can simulate it ahead of time and try to see if I can predict the season. And so that is what I will be doing. So, what is it that we're doing? If you haven't seen one of these videos before of mine. Basically, I am using this website called Brant Steel. I have a screenshot of it right here. And using this website, I simulated 600 different games of Survivor with the Survivor 50 cast. And I'm now going to present that data to you. So with Brant Steel, you can set things like their stats and relationships, like how strategic they are, how good they are at challenges and whatnot. And so while there is like a random element to it each time, just like in life, there's a random element to it. It does take into account like the player's actual outabilities, and that's what's kind of interesting about all of this, is that we get to see, with all of them mixed in together, whose abilities outrank other people's abilities.
And so that is what we're doing.
Now you might be asking, Hannah, why 600 games? That seems like a lot.
And it is.
And basically the answer is that I wanted to include a lot of factors. There's a lot of different things that I could have looked at. So it's like, how do they do with or without relationships? How do they do with their original tribe and like mixing up the tribe? And I even have some Big Brother simulations included in this. Now you might be asking, Hannah, that doesn't seem very relevant to this. And trust me, the Big Brother simulations were relevant in this. If I didn't include it, there's certain results that I've gotten from people where I think you would laugh at me. I don't know if that makes much sense, but trust me, when I show you what their Big Brother results are, you're gonna be like, oh, I get why you included it now. I know that's vague, but let's just say I've done this a lot, so I know how this goes. Okay? And I think Survivor simulations have a tendency to really punish non-strategic players. And I think that's fair. You know, they're not very good at the game. But I don't think it takes into account GOATs very well. Big Brother, though, does take into account GOATs. And like, they will target strategic players very early on because they're strategic and they're going to be good at the game. Survivor doesn't do that quite as well. And so the reason why I included the Big Brother ones were essentially to give the GOATs a chance. Some of these players, if you just looked at their Survivor ones, they only made the merge like 2% of the time. And if I told you that Joe only made the merge 2% of the time, I think you would laugh at me. And so that's why the Big Brother ones are important. I'm just saying. So take that as you may. But I did include a little breakdown of what my different games included, because there are certain ones that I want to be more prevalent than others. And so if we look at this breakdown, the largest portion is having the same teams with relationships I counted for. And when I say relationships, I largely used the answers to the friend or foe interview from Mike Bloom, which is fabulous. It was so helpful for me. I saw the first one and I was like, this is a game changer. This will change the game for my simulations. And so thank you, Mike Bloom, for having those interviews. But basically, like that, I wanted that to be the largest portion of the pie, were the original tribes in a survivor simulation with the relationship set. And so we can see that that's the 200 piece right here. And now I have 3 100 pieces. I have with the relationships and mixing up the tribes. I have with the relationships in a Big Brother simulation. And then I have just the same tribes with just the stats. They don't have relationships included. And then I have 250 games of mixed tribes with just the stats and just the stats in Big Brother. That's the breakdown of all of this, if you cared to know. Now you might be asking, how am I ranking this? And I must say, this is not a ranking necessarily. This is me creating a narrative. I'm using my creative writing minor to good use. Take that, Mom. Just kidding. My mom never really cared that much that I was a creative writing minor. I think if I was a major, she might have something to say about it. But as a minor, I think she was fine with that. Anyway, so this isn't really a ranking. It's a prediction. I'm predicting what this season will be. So I'm using the data, and with that data, I'm going to predict what each placement will be. I will still have graphs and data, don't worry. But while we go through all of these players, it is going to be set up as a narrative, not a ranking. So even if someone is like last place, that doesn't mean that they're like last place overall, that all their data is like last place worthy. It just means that that's who I think will be last place based off of my data. So, how did I do that exactly? And I have a lot of text on the screen. It's for me, not for you, because I have a very bad memory. But basically, I'm to answer how did I figure this out? I'm basically looking at how likely they are to go home at any given placement. And so the way I did this is say, so for 24th place, for last place, everyone has played 600 times.
Okay.
And so if they go home 20 times in 24th place, then I'm taking that over 600. And so if we do 20 over 600, we get a 3.33% chance of that person going home in 24th place. And so then from there, I don't take their percentages necessarily. I factor in how many games they have left and how often they win home in that placement. And so for 23rd place, they have 580 games left over because they went home 20 times in 24th place. And so then I take how many times they went home in 23rd place, and let's say that that's like 15 times, and I take that over 580. And so that would give them a 2.59% chance of going home in that placement. And then from there, if I do that with everyone, I can rank to see how likely they are to go home in that placement, and whoever has the highest percent goes home. I hope that makes some sense, and if it doesn't, just enjoy my narrative. But for those who wanted to know, I wanted to explain it, okay? Anyway, you might be asking yourself, what else? What else is there, Hannah? Before we get into my narrative. So basically, as we go through this, I'm going to talk about each player as they get eliminated. So just for the record, this is going to be multiple parts because I was making this and I was planning on it to be all just one part. And I only got past the first 6 vote outs and it was already getting pretty long. There was also a day while I was working on this where I forgot to take my Adderall. And so I was behind schedule.
Anyway.
So we're gonna dive deep into each person as they get eliminated. This video is just going to have the first 6 vote outs. And we'll be looking at, just their chances in general and try to figure out each player's best case scenario and what their biggest weaknesses are going into the season. Like what I think their downfall could be. You'll see it as we go along. I have a plan. I have this all set up. I want to say shout out to RHAP and Mike Bloom for all of their preseason coverage. I could not have been able to do this without that, because while I have a decent knowledge of Survivor, it is not quite as deep as my knowledge for Big Brother, and I would not have been able to set all of this stuff properly without it. In particular, the friend or foe interviews were truly a game changer. That is what I based all of my relationships on. So,
fabulous, really.
And now I'm going to break the fourth wall just a minute here, because I will be treating this very seriously
as a joke
throughout the rest of this video. However, I want to make something clear that I don't take this seriously. This is just based off of my data via the website Brandsteel. I don't actually think that this is how the season is going to go.
I want you to know that.
I'm just doing this for fun. Please don't take this more seriously than I do. Enjoy this as just a piece of entertainment. If your favorite player goes home first or second or third or whatever, this isn't the real season. You'll be okay. And I feel the need to lay out this disclaimer. Do not use this for gambling purposes.
I will not allow you to sue me.
Just because you saw in my video that a certain person goes home first, and you see in my other videos that this person goes really far, I don't want you to gamble on that. In your fantasy leagues of Survivor 50, do not sue me. It's on you if you choose to do that. I do not condone gambling.
Anyway,
let's see the season now, shall we? All right, so day one, we get into all of our tribes. We have the Kalo, the Sila, and the Vatu tribe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing all of those correctly, but we will pretend that I am. And so the first day, they're just getting into their tribes. The second day, they will be doing their first challenge to see who wins immunity and who does not. Only one tribe will be going to tribal council. They play the game. And naturally, Kalo is dominant in it. They clearly run home with it. They win the challenge. They get the biggest reward, whatever. Bravo. Congrats. You have Jonathan on your team.
Good for you.
And so it's between Sila and Vatu of who's going to go to tribal council first. And it is Vatu that loses the first immunity challenge. Sila, with their puzzle skills of Emily and Christian, are able to win the immunity challenge, and they send Vatu to tribal council. Now, before we get into what's going on in Vatu, let's just see what's going on in the other tribes. We're just gonna take a little peek into them, just so I can lay out what I think the tribes are looking like before all of this. So we have Kalo. Kalo consists of Jonathan, Mike, Charlie, Coach, Dee, Camilla, Tiffany, and Chrissy. Now, I think that the Kalo tribe is going to kind of look like this. I think there's gonna be a core four of Charlie, Coach, Chrissy, and Camilla. And by that, I mean, I think Charlie and Coach are going to immediately click up, if only because Coach loves Ben Katzman's down, and Charlie is friends with Ben. And I think that Coach would value the fact that Charlie knows Ben over everything else. And so I think his immediate ally is going to be Charlie. And so I think they're just, I don't even know if Charlie's that into Coach like that. Like, I think he's happy to work with Coach. But I think Coach is down to go down with the ship with Charlie, you know? And then to another extent, I think Camilla just loves Coach down. Like, she's obsessed with him. And so I think that's just another natural link up. While I don't think Coach cares about Camilla as much as he cares about Charlie, the fact that Camilla just loves Coach, I think she'll just naturally gravitate to that group. And then we have Chrissy and Charlie, who I think will be Charlie's actual number one ally, is Chrissy. I think they'll just bond. And somehow this becomes our core four of the tribe. Now, I do think that Tiffany and Dee will naturally go in with like Charlie and Coach. I think they'd also vibe in there as well. And so that leaves, honestly, Mike and Jonathan kind of on the outs, in my opinion. Now, I think, like, in a way, Jonathan could get into the group with Coach, but it honestly sounds like both Charlie and Jonathan don't like each other at all. And I kind of think that, in a weird way, I think Charlie's gonna run this tribe. He just kind of feels like the glue. And similarly to that, I don't think Mike really vibes with Charlie. And so I think just in that regards, I think they end up being the outsiders, personally. But we'll see what happens. They do have Jonathan on their tribe, so will they ever go to tribal council? I don't know. Actually, I do know, but I'm not telling you that. Now let's look at the Sela tribe before we get into the disaster tribe that is Vatu. The Sela tribe consists of Joe, Christian, Ozzy, Rick, Savannah, Suri, Emily, and Jenna. Now, when I look at this tribe, I see very clear duos. We've got Suri and Ozzy, we've got Christian and Emily, and we got Rick and Savannah. And now, if you don't know a lot of preseason coverage, let me explain why I see these duos as clearly as I do. One, the thing with Suri is that she's so charming and everyone loves her. I think whoever really gets on her good side first, I think she will be all down for. And Ozzy has said that this time around, he really wants to work with Suri. And so I think immediately they're just going to pair up. I don't think it'll be super obvious that they're a pair. I think they'll be good at keeping it discreet, but I do think that they will be an obvious pair. I think they could make a good run together. Christian and Emily, I think, is also kind of obvious. If you know a lot about RHAP, they play a lot of the same games together. They play Blood on the Clock Tower. They just obviously know each other outside the game. And I think even though they'd probably find each other dangerous because they know what the other person is capable of, I think they would view it as, I'd rather work with the person I know than the person I don't know. And I just think that'd be kind of an obvious pair. And then finally, Rick and Savannah, I think, is an obvious pair because they're both newscasters from Georgia. Savannah has said that she's obsessed with Rick Devens. And so even though I think Rick might approach Savannah a little skeptical because he doesn't know what to get, I think her fangirling over him will win him over, and I just think they'd be kind of an obvious duo. Now, this kind of leaves Joe and Jenna without a duo. And this is what I think. I think Jenna would lean towards Rick and Savannah. I think she would view them as two people that she could manipulate easily. It sounds like she wants to work with the 49ers, Savannah and Rizzo. And so I think she would lean into working with Savannah. And again, I think she wants to work with people she thinks she can manipulate. And out of the three duos, I think that's the duo that she'd be able to do that more easily. Now, Joe, I have a heart next to him. But it's not because everyone loves Joe. It's because Joe loves everyone. In his friend or foe segment, he said he was friends with everyone besides Camilla, Savannah, and Rizzo. And he only said Savannah and Rizzo because he doesn't know who they are. And so I'd almost imagine that he'd meet Savannah and go, actually, no, she can be a friend. So Joe just loves everyone. So now we are looking at the Vatu tribe. And the Vatu tribe consists of Colby, Rizzo, Q, Kyle, Genevieve, Angelina, Stephanie, and Aubrey. Now, when I think of this tribe, I think that it's kind of a disaster. And my data supported that. Okay, so the way I chose which tribe lost the first tribal council is that I counted up each time someone went home in 24th place. And then I included it in all the different tribes so I could see which tribe went home first the most. And I'm gonna be honest, it was very clearly Vatu. It wasn't even close. And unfortunately, that's kind of what I would have guessed to begin with anyway, too. So here we are. I do think that they'd kind of be a disaster. They're probably going to be very fun to watch, but unfortunately, if they're a disaster, they're going to be going home early, which I'm sad about. Now, I think there's going to be a very obvious pairing of Stephanie and Colby, just right at the beginning. And weirdly enough, so both Q and Genevieve expressed wanting to work with the other person, and I can honestly see that being like a kind of a solid alliance right at the beginning here. And I'm down for it. I would be very entertained.
I love Q.
I'll be honest, I only watched 46 via Twitter. And so I don't actually know that much about it, but of everything that I've seen of Q, I'm obsessed with that man. He's so funny. And I think like him and Genevieve, that just feels kind of diabolical to me. I love it. So weirdly enough, I think that's a pretty solid alliance. Okay, and then I think the other storyline that's going to be going on here, like the main storyline, is going to be Colby versus Angelina. They both clearly don't like each other. And so I think they're going to be trying to kind of start a war with each other. But it might be more of a cold war to start off with, because neither one really wants to fully put their neck out, right? And then you kind of got Aubrey, who I could see kind of being in the middle between like the Stephanie Colby and Angelina camp. Like she likes both sides, but clearly they're not willing to work with each other. I also see kind of a normie alliance forming between Aubrey, Kyle, and Genevieve. They're very clearly like the three most level-headed people in this group. And like, even though I think they're all like big threats, it's almost like I need to keep around some normal people. There's much bigger fishes to fry than Kyle. He's at least gonna help us with the challenges. Like, this is ridiculous. So I do think that that'll form a group. Now we have Rizzo, though. And I'm gonna say that I think Rizzo's stocks are on the decline. So despite the ever-growing war between Colby and Angelina, I think one, I could see Rizzo kind of messing up the challenge for them. He was never like super, it's weird because he was good at certain things. Like he was kind of good at like hand-eye coordination type of things, but he's clearly not good at puzzles. And I think maybe they might view him as someone they thought would be stronger in challenges and then he wasn't, which is also dangerous because I think they're not quite sure what's going on with Rizzo. Like, why was he asked back? He's not the winner. He must have something going on. So I think everyone's just kind of suspicious of him. And so because Angelina and Colby both don't want to fully strike at one another, Rizzo kind of ends up in this not great spot right here at the beginning. So they go to tribal council and Rizzo plays his shot in the dark and it misses because he kind of sees the writing on the wall here. So Rizzo loses his vote, he misses his shot in the dark, and Jeff begins to read the votes. Rizzo, 1 vote Rizzo, 6 votes left. Rizzo, 2 votes Rizzo, 5 votes left. Rizzo, 3 votes Rizzo, 4 votes left. Rizzo, 4 votes Rizzo. That's enough. You need to bring me your torch. Rizzo, the tribe has spoken. And Rizzo goes home in 24th place. So now when we look at Rizzo's stats here, he doesn't have it's not looking too good for Rizzo. I'm not gonna lie. We can see here that 24th place is clearly his mode here. And there's some sense that maybe he could make the early merge, but once we get past 11th place, it's pretty few and far between here. So when we look at his numbers, his average placement is 17.653. His mode is 24th place, which he got 13.17% of the time. His median was 19. He only won once out of the 600 games that I played, making his win percentage 0.17%. He was only in the final 2 4 times, making it 0.67%.
Also, for the record, the version that I had to use to do all of these simulations was Australian Survivor Season 1. So they only had a final 2, so I can't really calculate who, like, the final 3 would be. Because it's a little different because, like, you know, It's a different meta. But anyway, so we're gonna only be looking at like final 2, but I'll fix it up with my narrative. Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Anyway, he has a 25% chance of winning in the final 2, which not a lot of data there because he was only in the final 2 4 times, but go off. He has a 24.5% chance of making the merge, and I set the merge at 13 for the record. He has a 2.72% chance of making the final 2 after making the merge, and his percent chance of getting voted out at any given placement is about 19.389% of the time. So now I have some graphs for you regarding Rizzo. So this is his percentage breakdown for a couple different versions. This red version right here represents just all 600 games that he played. This is kind of his percentage breakdown. I have in green his percentage breakdown if we just look at the games where I don't have any relationships set. It's just their stats that I have set. In blue, I have how well they did in the Big Brother games. You will see that that's pretty relevant for some people. I'm just saying. And then in purple, I have the original tribes with relationships. And so those are the 200 games that I think might best align to what the actual season will be. But I wanted to factor in the other stuff just in case there's other things going on. You know, there's supposed to be some weird twists going on. Billie Eilish boomerang. Who's to say Rizzo doesn't get that and it takes him all the way to 6th place? I don't know. So I wanted to add some random elements in here. But anyway, so this purple's with relationships. And we can see he performs not great in that one. Which I'm not super surprised because him and Savannah had a lot of negative relationships towards them just because they're such unknown factors. And so it just made him an easy early boot, so to speak. But yeah, we can see that if we just take into account the stats, he does do a bit better. Down here, I just kind of have a breakdown of how often they got in certain eras. Positions? I don't know what to call it, but of just certain placements that they could have gotten. And so we can see that largely he goes home in the kind of pre-swap era of the season. And his least likely placement is gonna be this finale section right here that's 1st through 4th place, which I'm not super surprised with, honestly. And then here I just kind of have that same thing, but it's just taking into account after he made the merge. And so largely he just makes it right after the merge. He doesn't go much more past that, unfortunately. Now here is a different kind of graph. And this is what I use to kind of calculate who goes home in what placement. And so it's showing how likely they are to go home in each given placement. And so what I like to see here are where do the spikes happen. Here where it says the 21st, 22nd, 19th, 20th, this is going to be higher. And that's because there's going to be 2 vote outs for this. So I'm going to have 2 tribes go to tribal council. And so these are naturally just going to be a little bit higher than the rest. But otherwise, we can kind of try to figure out little spikes here. So we can see that once he gets past the kind of original tribes, he does fare a little bit better right before the merge, but then it spikes up yet again during the merge. The 3rd and 4th place too, that's going to be a lot higher for everyone. So yes, this is obviously a pretty high spike, but what we're going to care about is comparing it to other people more so. But I'm going to be honest, this is just kind of high compared to everyone. Now down here, I have it compared to his entire Vatu tribe. So we can see how much more likely he was to go home from all the rest of the people on his tribe. Ignore this pre-stat. I just set that as 0 for everyone because it looked weird just having a bunch of dots there. So this doesn't mean anything. But this shows us kind of how Rizzo compared to everyone else on his tribe. Kyle, Genevieve, Aubrey, and weirdly enough, Q and Stephanie were all pretty safe here. I'd say they have a small likelihood of going home first. I was pretty surprised by Q, I'm not gonna lie. But good for him. I mean, he's good at challenges, so you might as well keep him around first. And that tribe has enough weird stuff going on that, that might actually help Q. I don't know. What we can see here, though, is that it's Angelina and Colby that were a bit closer to going home than Rizzo. But he does edge out on them, and so he's the first person voted out of the tribe. So, how could Rizzo win the game? Let's discuss. I think his best chance to win, or at least get past his original tribe, is to try to lay low as much as possible. I think he really needs to try to play up this little brother role, this super fan role, just kind of suck up to people like Colby and Aubrey and Stephanie, and just make it seem like he's just their little brother, endear himself to them. I actually think he should play up his Riz God persona, because I think what he's in danger with is that they're gonna wanna know why they invited him back. And I think his best case scenario is to make them think that they invited him back because he's kind of just this goofy character, this larger than life character. And so I think by playing up this Riz God persona, I think that might make them go, oh, they just kind of brought him back because he is a weirdo. I also think that of the people on his original tribe, I think Aubrey's the most willing to work with the 49ers. And so I think if he's going to have someone in mind to be his ally, he needs to get in with Aubrey first. Because I think if she doesn't get vibes that he'd want to work with her, that might kind of destroy his chances. So I think that's who he needs to look at first. And then I think when he wants to eventually become GameBot Rizzo, once he gets into a tribe with Charlie, I could see them vibing with each other. Charlie seemed to have good things to say about Rizzo, and at this point, he kind of just needs to connect with anyone who had any good things to say about him. And so I think if he wants to eventually get into GameBot Rizzo mode, I think Charlie's going to be the best person to do that with. Otherwise, most people he needs to try to lay low and act like their little brother who's a super fan, if that makes sense. I do think that I've underestimated his strategic ability in my simulations. I based his stats just based off of what I had for my 49 simulations. And in there, I had Savannah set as great strategically and Rizzo set as average. I actually think I should have swapped that. I think Rizzo should have been set as great and Savannah as average. So in hindsight, I probably would have changed that. And I think that would have helped Rizzo in these simulations, especially since I do think the Survivor ones take in the strategic ability a lot more. So with that being said, I think he is more capable than what I'm giving him credit for. So I could actually see him doing a lot better than what these simulations suggest. Now, for his weaknesses, it's a lot of stuff that I think is outside of his control. I don't think the meta is great for him right now. Right now, I think a lot of them are viewing him and Savannah, these unknowns, as being a lot more threatening than what they actually are. And I'm thinking about how Colby is especially thinking about Russell Hantz and thinking about why would they bring Rizzo back? It's probably for the same reason why they would bring Russell Hantz back. And I think that's gonna play against Rizzo pretty poorly, frankly. And if you compare him and Savannah, at least with Savannah, she's gonna be honest and she's gonna say that she won. And I think people at least will view that as oh, they brought her back because she's a winner. It's not necessarily going to be she did something huge and crazy to get brought back, and so that's why she's here. It's she's a winner. Rizzo doesn't really have that. They just have kind of this imagination of what he could have done to be brought back, and I think that'll hurt him in the long run. I think they're just gonna be trying to find ways to justify why he got on the cast. And then with that being said, I do think that because it's such a short turnaround between his time on that island in 49 and this season, I think he is still in GameBot mode. And I think what he needs to do is like lower that down because they're already going to be viewing him as a threat. They're going to be kind of intimidated by what they think he could have been doing. And if he stays in this kind of gamebot mode, I think that'll just kind of confirm what they're already thinking about him. And so I think that's dangerous too. And then finally, I just think he's on the disaster tribe. I don't think that the Vatu tribe's gonna do very well. And so even if he's not the first out, like I have predicted right here, I think it's very likely that his tribe will go to tribal council more often. And that just, you know, lessens his chances with everything already said. Maybe he doesn't get out 24th, maybe he doesn't get out 23rd. But if they go to tribal council a third time, it's like, that might be his undoing. I like Rizzo, and I kind of feel bad for him in Savannah because I think they're just not in a great spot comparatively to everyone. So I hope they do well in like the sense of like, I don't want them embarrassing themselves. But I think it's gonna be rough for Rizzo, at least for the first couple of vote outs. He might be able to gain some footing, but I don't think anyone's gonna be able to fully trust him. I'm worried. So we move on to day 3. Rizzo has been voted out, hence my X over his face. I'm sorry, Rizzo. We have another immunity challenge, and only one tribe is going to tribal council yet again. And it is Vatu yet again.
Doesn't get much better for them.
Callow and Sela are both safe, and I would say that their dynamics are the same as last time, so we're not gonna go over them again. So now we're with the Vatu tribe. Rizzo is voted out, and we have Colby, Q, Kyle, Genevieve, Angelina, Stephanie, and Aubrey left. Now, the tensions between Colby and Angelina are just rising. They haven't gotten better. They're still at war, and at this point, one of them needs to go because it's just getting uncomfortable. Now, Colby obviously has Stephanie, and Angelina isn't like super obviously with anyone else either. She likes Aubrey, she likes Genevieve, she wants to work with the women, but otherwise, it's not super obvious. And there's a normie group forming between Aubrey, Genevieve, and weirdly enough, Q. Comparatively to Angelina and Colby, Q appears fairly normal. And it's kind of freaking everyone out, but you know, again, there's bigger fish to fry. It's like, I'm not gonna look at Q. Colby and Angelina are being crazy right now. And so he's weirdly enough in the normie group. Now, Aubrey and Genevieve are forming a little coalition together, and they like Stephanie. And they think that they could work pretty closely with her if Colby is gone. And Stephanie sees this, and she kind of thinks to herself that she has Aubrey and Genevieve because she does get along with them. And so you can see the obvious factions that are forming here. So who will go home? Will it be Colby so that Aubrey and Genevieve can snag Stephanie and get her into their normie group? Or will it be Angelina, who Stephanie wants out and believes that Aubrey and Genevieve will vote with her along with Colby to get her out? We will see. So we're at tribal council. Nobody plays an idol. And the first vote is red. Colby. 1 vote Colby. 7 votes left. Is it 7 or 6? It's actually 6, I think. I'm sorry. I did that wrong. We're just gonna roll with it. Maybe Jeff made a mistake.
Colby, 1 vote Colby, 7 votes left.
Angelina, 1 vote Colby, 1 vote Angelina, 6 votes left. Colby, 2 votes Colby, 1 vote Angelina, 5 votes left. Angelina, 2 votes Colby, 2 votes Annalena, 4 votes left. Colby, 3 votes Colby, 2 votes Angelina, 3 votes left. Colby, 4 votes Colby, 2 votes Angelina. That's enough. You need to bring me your torch. Colby, the tribe has spoken. And so I predict that Colby will go home in 23rd place. As you can see here on the graph, he actually gets a 24th place pretty often. And so 23rd is not far off. But unfortunately for Rizzo had more 24th places than Colby. And so despite this, it still didn't work out very well for Rizzo. He does have some spikes around 18th place, which is probably around where one of the swaps are going to happen. And again, at 13th place, which is where I imagine the merge would probably happen. So I think for him, it's more of a matter of finding his footing in any group that he's in And if he can get a footing, then I think he can be okay. But I think it's adapting to whatever group he gets into and whether or not he can successfully adapt. So for his numbers, his average placement was 16.475. His mode is 24th place, which he got 11.5% of the time. His median is 18. He won 6 times out of 600, giving him a 1% chance of winning overall. He was in the final 22 times, giving him a 3.67% chance of getting to the final 2. He won in the final 27% of the time. He made the merge 30.33% of the time. He could make the final 2 while in the merge 12.09% of the time. And his percent chance of getting voted out at any given stage is 13.642% of the time. Now, here's how all of his games kind of compare with each other. And there's a big outlier here, as you can see. So here's his just all 600 games. It's pretty close to his just stats. What the outlier is this Big Brother games. He does a lot better in Big Brother. And that's kind of why I included it, is because do I think Colby is like a surefire first boots, second boots? I don't think so, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if his tribe chooses to go after Angelina more than they would choose to go after Colby, if only for challenges. And that's kind of why I wanted to include the Big Brother ones. The people who are good at challenges just tend to go further. And in Survivor, it's just not like that. And I think that's weird because I actually kind of view it as the opposite. Because I think in Survivor, if you're good at challenges, like, yeah, even if you're not the most strategically sound, if you're going to be someone that helps the tribe win challenges, then they're going to keep you around. Like, even if they don't like you all that much. Most of the time, at least. So, I don't know. I wanted that kind of factor to kind of even it out. But, you know, I just imagine, like, he's able to get Angelina out more quickly. I also think with Big Brother, I think it took the relationships into account a little differently, because basically I don't think Colby has that many people gunning after him beyond like Angelina. Dee doesn't like him. Like some of the women weren't vibing with him too much, but he did have like a decent amount of people who were willing to work with him, and just him being like kind of an old schooler, like kind of having that reverence. So I think there's certain things that he'd fare better at. For the original tribes with relationships though, that's kind of where he plummets. And I'm honestly not surprised by that, because I think that this tribe is kind of the worst case scenario for him. I think it's a bad draw for Colby, this original tribe that he's in. So I'm not surprised that this is kind of his weakest performing area, is this original tribes with relationships. Now, if we look at these pie charts, it says that his most likely placement of going home is in the pre-swap, and his least likely placement is going to be this like late merge area. Weirdly enough, it seems like he makes the finale more often than he does this late merge, and so, you know, good for him. Good for Colby. When we look at just the merge pie graph, he seems to just make this kind of 10th through 12th place placement the most, and he gets the 7th through 9th place placement the most. So if he can get past like the first kind of area of the merge, you know, I think he has a decent shot of going like pretty far. I think it just kind of depends on how he adapts to the new people that he meets, and whether or not he's like amenable to them. Here is his kind of percent chance of going home. We can see it's pretty close to Rizzo for the most part, but then once we get past this 13th place, he kind of fares a little bit better, and he has a better chance of getting past like 3rd, 4th place and getting into the finale. When we look at this percent chance in comparison to his tribe, and so this was the first vote out with Rizzo. He was already the 2nd most likely to go home, and then for this 23rd place, he just narrowly is worse than Angelina. Angelina is very close to going home, but Colby just narrowly edges her out. We can see that Stephanie is 3rd in that kind of placement, but it's not nearly as high as him or Angelina. And then again, weirdly enough, Q is pretty safe. I can only assume it's because of Genevieve, to be honest. And then Aubrey, Genevieve, and Kyle are all fairly safe, at least in comparison to Colby, Angelina, and Stephanie. How I think Colby can win? Maybe he could try Big Brother. He seems to fare better in that. I'm just kidding. I think he would hate Big Brother, to be honest. To start off, he either needs to have Angelina be the first boot or really focus on making a truce with her early on. I think that's really gonna be kind of his downfall. I could see him just kind of being distracted by her and that putting other people off. So I think he needs to just figure out the Angelina situation and move forward from there. I also think that he should hope for an early swap. I think his best allies are going to be either Cirie or Coach. He sounds like he really wants to get in with Cirie, and it sounds like both him and Coach are down to form like a bromance with each other. And so I think that's his best case scenario, is getting an early swap and getting in a tribe with either Cirie and Coach and kind of running with that. What I think will be difficult for him if he does make it past like these early stages, I think it'll be difficult for him to win a final tribal council. And so I think he needs to kind of focus on playing like a different game from like his typical Colby game, where maybe he's a little more strategic. And so even if it's not like the most impressive, maybe for the simple fact that it's so different from what he's used to, it might convince people and it might feel more impressive than what it actually is. I also think that, you know, if he links up with like a Joe or Jonathan or both, and that's who he goes to the final three with, I think he's probably more respected than them. And so I'd vote for Colby over Joe and Jonathan personally. So that might be his endgame chance right there. As far as his weaknesses, I think number one, it's just a really rough starting tribe. As I said before, I just think this tribe is the most likely to go to tribal council a lot. And so depending on how long they're in the original tribes, I think that can be dangerous for him, even if like he doesn't go home first or second necessarily. For one, I think he's going to be seen as a clear duo with Stephanie. And so even though I think on the surface that seems like a good thing, I think his tribe mates might view it as like we need to break up either him or Stephanie. And I think that Stephanie can get a good in with the women. I think she can even get along with like Angelina. She's very like girl power, you know? And so I just think if it's going to come down to like either Stephanie or Colby needs to go home, I feel like they're going to go with Colby. And again, he's got that beef with Angelina, and so I don't think that's going to help him either. And again, I think it's going to be kind of a win equity issue with him. If like he chooses to go to the end with Cirie or like Coach, I honestly think that Colby would be viewed as more of a GOAT than anything. I don't know what he needs to do to kind of prove that he deserves to win over a lot of these other people who are on the cast. So I think that's going to be a difficult road for him as well. So now we're moving on to day 4. And this time, 2 tribes are going to tribal council. And when you know it, Callow is the one that wins the immunity. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed? And so Sela and Vatu are both going to tribal council. Now Vatu gets fully last place, so they have to go to tribal council first. But Sela will have to also vote out a player. So we are gonna look at Vatu first. Perhaps you are already sick of talking about them. You want to know what's going on in the other tribes. Well, we will shortly, but we're focused on these guys yet again. Now, I think that with Colby gone, I think somehow there's gonna be kind of a women's thing forming. I think Stephanie's gonna be leaning into Aubrey mostly. I think Angelina will learn to get along with Stephanie as well. So I think there's kind of going to be a threesome between Stephanie, Aubrey, and Angelina, with kind of Genevieve in there as well. I think Aubrey's gonna be close to Genevieve, but I don't know if Genevieve's gonna be as close to like Stephanie or Angelina, because I think Genevieve is locked in with Q, and I think she's kind of more in a threesome with Q and Kyle than anything else. And Angelina is over here thinking, like, we need to get rid of this Q guy.
This guy's crazy.
And he's being too normal. People like him too much right now, but he's going to turn on us. And I think that's going to make Q go, well, we need to get Angelina out here. And so Aubrey's put in a weird position where Q, Genevieve, and Kyle want to vote out Angelina, and Stephanie and Angelina want to vote out Q. And so Aubrey can either tie up the vote and get out Q and keep kind of her threesome of her, Stephanie, and Angelina with a back pocket of Genevieve, or she doesn't tie up the vote and she makes it a 4-2 vote against Angelina. So let's see what Aubrey chooses to do. No one plays an idol. Q, 1 vote Q, 5 votes left. Angelina, 1 vote Q, 1 vote Angelina, 4 votes left. Q, 2 votes Q, 1 vote Angelina, 3 votes left. Angelina, 2 votes Q, 2 votes Angelina, 2 votes left. Angelina, 2 votes Q, 3 votes Angelina, 1 vote left. Angelina, 2 votes Q, 4 votes Angelina. That's enough. You need to bring me your torch. Angelina, the tribe has spoken. Now, I hate to say this, but I am predicting that Angelina gets 22nd place. Yeah, I did say that right. I love Angelina down. So I would really like her to not go home this early. Trust me. But it's just what I'm predicting. Unfortunately. We can see here this early vote out is like kind of the spot that she typically gets. I would say these aren't quite as high as like Colby and Rizzo though. She has some chance of getting past this kind of original tribe vote out here, but it's still not looking too great. And I'd say it's unlikely for her to get past 6th place, but you know, one can hope. As far as her numbers go, her average placement is 16.393. Her mode is 23rd place, which she got 9.17% of the time. Her median is 17. She won a total of 3 times out of 600, giving her a 0.5% chance of winning. Better than what I would think, to be honest. She was in the final 2 8 times out of 600, giving her a 1.33% chance of making the final 2. She won in the final 2 37.5% of the time. She'd make the merge 29.5% of the time. She'd make the final 2 while in the merge 4.52% of the time, and her percent chance of getting voted out at any given placement is 16.949%. All right, so when we look at all of her games, so this is all 600 games, it's pretty close to her just stats, no relationships. I will say with all of the games, it seems like her original tribe kind of era fares a little bit worse, whereas it does get better towards like the merge era as opposed to just the stats. But we can see here that the Big Brother games she fares a little bit better in. Again, I think that's because Big Brother is a little more willing to have the goats go further. Which I think it makes sense. Like, you're gonna hear me talk about this a lot. But it's like, if I'm like Christian, no, I'm not gonna have an end game plan of like Sari and Genevieve and Dee and who else is a good player? Charlie. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. I want some goats with me. I want an Angelina. Anyway, she definitely fared better, but it's not really like her end game does all that better. She doesn't really make the final 2 or win that much more often in the Big Brother game. She just makes it further. And then it's this original tribes with relationships that she does the worst in. I think similarly to Colby, this starting tribe is just, it's a rough go for Angelina. So she's just more likely to go home early, which then just kind of messes everything up. But I do think that once she reaches the merge, it kind of starts to match up with the like all and just stats graphs. So we can see here her largest chunk of the pie is this pre-swap era, and her smallest one is this finale 1st through 4th place. If we just look at the merge, the 10th through 12th place pie is the largest, and the final 3 is the smallest. Now, when we compare the percent chance of going out in any given time, she is pretty close to Colby and Rizzo when it comes to this first part, but she does fare a little bit better in this kind of 20th through 17th place spot. And then it gets a little bit worse right before the merge. But honestly, once we reach the merge, she does a little bit better until 10th place. And then it just starts to spike up again. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a mixed bag for Angelina. It's really going to depend on how other people perceive her, I think. Because there's a good chance that they don't perceive her in the right way. And they just vote her out because they find her annoying, which I resent, for the record. Now here, if we compare her to the rest of the people in her tribe, I think it's kind of clear that she's the most likely to go home. Q does take a hike up, so his danger level is rising, and Stephanie is right behind him. And so again, I think Kyle, Genevieve, and Aubrey are clearly the three safest in that group, with Q rising up and Stephanie kind of staying in this somewhat in danger, but not quite in the most danger spot. So now, how can Angelina win?
I would like to know.
I'd love to see an Angelina win, even if I think it's unlikely. I think she needs to go full girl power. I think she needs to immediately start up a group with her, Stephanie, Aubrey, and Genevieve, and just add more girls as they start to swap tribes and mix and mingle together. Just go full girl power. You know? Yeah, I think even like before like Colby gets voted out, or even if he doesn't, she needs to just kind of get over that feud, if only just to fully get in with Stephanie. Because I think getting a group of her, Stephanie, Aubrey, and Genevieve right at the beginning, I think that's going to be her best path forward. It's just like, I'm all for girl power. I want us all to get to the end together. Like, just really run that table. I think it'd be good for her to keep like big characters around, just so she's not seen as like the biggest, you know? Like, I think keeping a Q around, even like Rizzo in her original tribe, just kind of like this goofy character, I think would make her seem more normal. And then I also think she needs to hope that Mike White gets voted out before the merge, because that will conflict with her girl power strategy, because she basically said that she won't vote him out unless she's gonna win like $5 million at the end. So I think she just needs to hope that he gets out before her, frankly. Now, her weaknesses is that, like Colby and Rizzo, she has a rough starting tribe. Again, clearly her and Colby have a beef together, and I think what goes against Angelina is that Colby does have an extra number in Stephanie, and so people might just view it as like, well, Stephanie and Colby aren't going to turn on each other. We might as well like just go against Angelina, because they might already have some kind of numbers together, depending on who else they pull. And so I think that might hurt Angelina at the beginning. I also think like even if she does make like the inroads that she needs, and either like has a truce with Colby or gets him out before he gets her out, if they go to tribal council enough, it might not matter that much. I think also when it comes to Angelina, she's gonna have that big like David versus Goliath target. So especially if they're the only ones going to tribal super often, they might just view her as like, well, we can't get Christian out, we can't get Mike out because they're in different tribes. We might as well get Angelina out and kind of sever that David versus Goliath trio. And especially with Mike White in there, her being very close to him, I think it's just dangerous. And lastly, she's Angelina. She's an icon. I love her, but she is Angelina, so yeah, That's my answer. All right, so now we have Sela going into their tribal council. So let's see what's going on here. So as I stated before, there's kind of 3 clear duos. We have Cirie and Ozzy, Christian and Emily, and Rick and Savannah. Jenna is more in with Rick and Savannah, and Joe loves everybody. But who are the targets? Who are they looking at? Jenna is eyeing Cirie. She wants Cirie out.
She wants to be the alpha.
And she's kind of already got this trio with Rick and Savannah. However, Cirie has Ozzy, and I think that Christian and Emily would lean towards Cirie. That's just how I imagine it. I think they would all kind of get along. They're almost like the normal group. Cirie, Ozzy, Christian, and Emily. I think Christian would rather work with Cirie early on than go against her. And Cirie seems to really like Emily. And I think Emily would be kind of put off by Rick. I think she'd get along with Ozzy. I see those 2 duos forming together. And I think Cirie would view this as, all right, she's got her, Ozzy, Christian, and Emily. And then we have Joe in her camp. And she thinks like, okay, we can easily get out, say, Savannah. She's looking at Savannah. Savannah admitted that she's a winner. And it's like, might as well chop that off while we can. Okay? But Jenna is looking at Cirie. Now, Jenna is trying to form this coalition against Cirie. She knows she already has Rick and Savannah on her side. And now she's trying to get over some more numbers. She thinks that she could get Ozzy because she doesn't know that Ozzy is fully like in a duo with Cirie. And so she's talking to Ozzy and Joe, and she's like, we need to try to get Cirie out. Now, Joe, who loves everybody, is just agreeing with whatever people are saying. Ozzy thinks, that's kind of strange. I thought that we had the numbers with Joe to get out Savannah. And so Ozzy's now concerned because Jenna has herself, Rick, and Savannah, and she might have Joe. And so that's 4 votes. And then it would just be Ozzy, Cirie, Emily, and Christian against Savannah, making it a 4-4 vote. This is becoming concerning. They might not have the majority that they think that they have. And so he runs back and he tells Cirie about this. He's like, Jenna's gunning after you, and I'm not sure if we have Joe necessarily. And Cirie is like, God damn it, Jenna. Messing around with things. But she has an idea. She runs back to Jenna and says, hey, we didn't have the best footing. I get that. But I want to tell you something. Joe's a little sneaky because he's around here telling me that he's voting with me when I hear that you think that he's voting with you. And, you know, who knows, this might form like a 4-4 vote, and then we're drawing rocks, and then you could go home. And so Cirie is pitching that, you know, a friend to all is a friend to none. And Jenna is like, you know what? You're right. And I trust you for coming back to me with this information. So we're at tribal council. No idols are played. I don't actually know. I don't really know what to do with the idol part. So right now, nobody has an idol. Maybe they do. I don't really know. Anyway, first vote, Joe. 1 vote, Joe. 7 votes left. Savannah. 1 vote, Joe. 1 vote, Savannah. 6 votes left. Joe. 2 votes, Joe. 1 vote, Savannah. 5 votes left. Joe. 3 votes, Joe. 1 vote, Savannah. 4 votes left. Joe. 4 votes, Joe. 1 vote, Savannah. 3 votes left. Joe. 5 votes, Joe. 1 vote, Savannah. That's enough. You need to bring me your torch. Joe, the tribe has spoken. Yeah, so Joe goes home next. And as you can see here by his graph, he went home early so often. I actually think that his percent chance of going home is higher than Rizzo's, like in 24th place. However, with calculating like how many people went home like in 24th place, the Vatu tribe just like clearly blew everyone out of the water. And so luckily for Joe, his tribe didn't go to tribal council first. Otherwise, this is what would have happened in 24th place. I was surprised by this. And we'll get into this again. I kind of think Joe is the reason I wanted to include the Big Brother simulations. I'm just saying. So, for his numbers, his average placement is 16.92. His mode is 24th place, which he got 13.67% of the time. His median is 18. He won a total of 7 times, which is 1 0.17% of the 600 games. And I believe all 7 times were in the Big Brother simulations.
I'm just saying.
He was in the final 2 26 times, which makes it so that he made the final 2 4.33% of the time. Again, I think most of those were for the Big Brother simulations. His percent chance of winning in the final 2 is 26.92%. His percent chance of making the merge is 28.83%. His percent chance of making the final 2 while in the merge is 15.03%, and his percent chance of getting voted out at any given placement is 13.12%. So, yes, realistically, Joe is probably a shoo-in to make the merge. Maybe even to go further than that. Maybe even final 2, if we're being honest. But that's just not what my data said. And that's why I wanted to include this Big Brother data, because I'm telling you, I think the first 100 games that I played of this, it said that Joe only made the merge 2% of the time. If I told you that Joe would only make the merge 2%, you would be laughing at me right now. I know you would. Don't say that you wouldn't. I mean, I did set his strategic ability to terrible. But how could I not? He went on a friend or foe interview and said everyone was his friend.
I'm sorry.
We can see for his all, it's pretty terrible. And for his just stats, it's even worse. When we factor in relationships, somehow it's worse at the beginning. I don't know why. I don't think he's in that bad of a place with his original tribe, to be honest. But I guess it is. And then we can see kind of during the swap era, he fares a little bit better than his just stats, but then it plummets once we reach the merge. I think it's just because he's not a good ally.
I don't know.
I think this is my most out of left field one. Again, I think y'all will laugh at me. And chances are he is going to make it really far. But you know what? If he doesn't, I'm saying it here first. When we look at his percent chance of going home, again, it's pretty bad. It's worse than Rizzo and Colby. It gets a little bit better past this kind of initial round, but it's still not that great. And when we reach the merge, he's in a lot of danger. I'd imagine it's because he is good at comps, and so they want to get him out early. But then, if he can make it past the first stage of the merge, it does fare pretty well for him. He has kind of a clear ride to the final 2, I'd say. This is one of the better 3rd, 4th place percentages right here. So, it might just suggest that if he can make it past this beginning portion, he probably does get to the final 2. Let's be honest here. But I don't know. It suggests that he's in a lot of danger before that. When we look at his entire tribe, the entire Sela tribe, we can see he is, for the 24th and 23rd place, he would very clearly be the person voted out here. When we do get to this spot, Rick and Savannah are both rising towards him. So, it might be that if his tribe can get a few immunities, it actually might not be too bad for him. Rick and Savannah might rise as a target. But as far as the others, Christian, Ozzy, Sari, Emily, and Jenna, they're really not in danger. It's between Joe, Rick, and Savannah. Now, how can Joe win? For him, I don't know, play Big Brother? I know I said the same for Colby, but I had to make the joke twice. I think especially in this era of Survivor, I don't know if Joe can ever win. Can he make it to the end a lot? Probably. I don't know if he can ever really win. But I do think that he can easily fit in as a loyal soldier to someone, especially someone like Jenna, maybe Sari and Ozzy. He can very easily just fit in as he's a number that's loyal that you don't need to worry about. Difficult to win, but I think it'd make a easy way to get to the end game, I do think he should be safer in the pre-merge than what my simulations suggest. It just doesn't take into account the challenge beasts. I don't know why the Sela tribe, I don't know what they'd be doing to try to get rid of Joe. Like, he's really their main muscle source. Maybe besides Ozzy, but Ozzy's older now. I don't know. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Or to you, I'm sure. Now, his weaknesses is that I do think he's over his head strategically. And I don't know if he's going to be able to be like flexible enough for this game. I didn't really watch 48, but I have a good vibe of what like Joe, Camilla, and Kyle seem to be. And it just seems like as far as 48 goes, it was kind of perfect for Joe. Like it felt like it was a lot about loyalty. People weren't really swaying that much to what was going on around them. And I don't think that's going to be the case for 50. And so I think he's just a little over his head. And it kind of sounds like he's just afraid of everyone, which is not a good spot for someone like Joe to be in, you know? I do think his tribe is stronger than the Vatu tribe, but I don't think it's as strong as the Callow tribe. And so in a situation like this where I think they could have like a double tribal council, I think that does put him in danger because I don't think that he's in like the best spot of his tribe. I don't see why they'd vote him out. But again, he's not really in a duel with anyone. I don't really see anyone vouching that hard for Joe. And so it could just be if they go to tribal council early, he's someone that goes home. Again, I think it's really just a danger if there are any like double tribal councils happening. And frankly, I just don't think he has a winning end game. I can't really see a situation where it would happen personally, but I could be wrong. I don't think I am though. So, all right, now we're into day 5 and this is gonna be the last day we cover because this is already getting long. We're gonna have another double tribal council. So 1 tribe is winning, 2 tribes are going to tribal. And that is, of course, the Callow tribe is winning. And Sela and Vatu are going to tribal council. You know, very much like actual seasons of Survivor, there's just one tribe that is clearly better than the others. I'm sorry. And this is the answer. And this is what I would have predicted too. So, you know, there's that. Vatu is the clear loser. So they're going to tribal council first, again. We only have Q, Kyle, Genevieve, Stephanie, and Aubrey left in the Vatu tribe. Now the breakdown, there's kind of a foursome between Q, Genevieve, Kyle, and Aubrey. They're again like the normies, but Aubrey is getting close with Stephanie. She does like Stephanie. She thinks Stephanie is a good ally for her. And she's also pretty close to Genevieve. Now, Stephanie has not forgotten the weird DMs that Q sent her before the season started, which if you don't know that story, I'd recommend looking up this little short thing that I forget who put it out, but it's like who they'd want to vote out first. And Stephanie says Q because he like DM'd her things like Happy Mother's Day and like wouldn't talk about the season, which I just think is really funny. But anyway, she's not forgotten about that. And Q is also just starting to get a little bored. So maybe he's doing some Q things. So, let's see what happens. No one plays an idol. Stephanie, 1 vote Stephanie, 4 votes left. Q, 1 vote Stephanie, 1 vote Q, 3 votes left. Q, 1 vote Stephanie, 2 votes Q, 2 votes left. Q, 1 vote Stephanie, 3 votes Q. That's enough. You need to bring me your torch. Q, the tribe has spoken. And so now we have Q. He had a pretty good run at the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, but a little bit of boredom and a lack of a tribe swap, I think is what hurt him here. As you can see at this graph, I was shocked by how little he went home in 24th and 23rd place. I was really expecting that to be a lot more, but it's really more this middle area. Like he doesn't go like past 8th place all that much, but he does get in the middle quite a bit, which, you know what?
Good for Q.
I wouldn't have guessed it. As far as his numbers go, his average placement is 14.938. His mode is 19th place, which he got 7.83% of the time. His median is 16. He won a total of 5 times out of 600, giving him a 0.83% chance of winning, and he was in the final 2 12 times out of 600, giving him a 2% chance of getting to the final 2. He has a percent chance of winning in the final 2 of 41.67%. He has a 38% chance of making the merge. He has a 5.26% chance of making the final 2 after making the merge. His percent chance of getting voted out at any given placement is 15.605%. Now here are his graphs. Honestly, we can already see that he's doing a lot better than the previous 4 people that we've talked about so far. When we look at his all graph, it's pretty similar to his original with relationships, to be honest. And again, I'm very surprised by how well he does at the beginning of the game with his original with relationships. And honestly, I have to attribute that to Genevieve. I think that him being on the same tribe as Genevieve, who's someone who is very willing to work with Q, and Q is also very willing to work with her. Because I think there's some danger of like, both people needs to give each other good vibes in order for like an alliance to truly form, I think. Because maybe one person is feeling another person, but then when they get in the game and that person isn't like reciprocating it back, I feel like that would destroy whatever potential relationship might form. But I think the fact that both of them are willing to work with each other is very interesting. And so I think that helps Q a lot with this early game portion, especially with this original tribe. Big Brother seems to be kind of his danger point. That's where he gets voted out early a lot more often. And I will say with the Big Brother games, I think they target bigger threats more often. And so I do think it makes sense that in the Big Brother games, he's just viewed as a bigger target. And I also think it's relevant to the actual game. So again, I want to include it. For his just stats, that's where he does better in like the middle portion. It does seem to equal out towards the end, but when we don't account for relationships, he seems to do a little bit better in this kind of swap, early merge era than the other games. When we look at his graph, this is where we start to see him moving away from this kind of pre-swap chunk, and it's looking like he's the most likely to go home in like kind of a early swap era of the game. And then when we look at this post-merge pie, he seems to go out pretty early, but I don't know. It's a little more equal, especially looking right here with all the different placements. It's really just kind of this end game where he doesn't have as much of a chance with, but I think it suggests that he could make a pretty decent run, like depending on his luck. When we look at his percent chance of getting out at any given stage, again, weirdly impressed by this early portion. This is where he went out here, and it is rising, but it does go down a bit and doesn't really tick up until we reach like 10th place. So I think it really just depends on how long he's able to sit on his hands, and I think how willing he is to be like a leader for his tribe, because I think that's a spot that he might be able to do well in, is like being a good leader of his tribe, as long as he's not too crazy. We can see here when we're comparing him to the rest of his Vatu tribe, he's pretty good at the beginning. It's really when, right here, when Angelina goes home, where his threat level starts to rise. And then when we get into the placement where I am seeing that he's going home, he's like a little bit above Stephanie, but it's significant enough. And then Kyle is right behind him and Stephanie. I could imagine like Kyle being a winner would start to raise his threat level, especially as they're getting down to the wire. But it's really Genevieve and Aubrey who I think are running the show. Like they're the ones deciding who's going home, who are they keeping. I also think at this point, it's not gonna matter like who they think would help them with challenges. They're clearly just kind of losing everything. And so even though I think Q is strong at challenges and I think that could keep him safe for a bit, at this stage in the game, I don't really think it matters. All right, so how can Q win? I'd love to know. I think he's hilarious. One, I really like the idea of an alliance between him and Genevieve. I think it's really gonna depend on what the swap situations look like, but I'd be very interested in seeing how they move forward together. So he's talking about how he wants to sit on his hands at the beginning. He can't go full Q on them. And I feel like if he appears normal enough at first, especially in this kind of wacky, chaotic tribe, it might shock enough people into working with him. Like, if you've got like Angelina and Colby like going after each other and Rizzo being like the Riz god, you know, it might make people like Aubrey or Kyle go, frankly, Q is the better case scenario here compared to some of these other people. So I think that might help him. Weirdly, I think he's the one where I think this tribe oddly helps him. And, I think with some decent luck, he could make a decent run. I think it's going to depend on how long the original tribes are set for. I think it's going to depend on where he gets swapped to. But if he gets lucky, I think I could see him making the merge, to be honest. Now, for his weaknesses, I mean, he is Q. I think he's just gonna always be considered a target because of what they think he could do. Like, even if he's really focused on sitting on his hands and focused on not doing wild stuff, I don't really think it'll matter because I think they can always just point to like, well, look at what he could do. We need to get him out before he could do this. And so I just think he's always gonna be considered a target in that way. He's also on the quote unquote disaster tribe. And while I think it'll help him blend in, again, if they go to tribal council enough, it doesn't really matter. I also think at the end of the day, he likes to make good TV. I think he kind of knows his role now. And so I think he might be able to sit on his hands a little bit, but I think at a certain point, he's going to want to kind of make those good TV moments. And so I think eventually it'll kind of fall apart, which is unfortunate because I want to see Q on TV as long as I can, to be quite frank. So I hope this isn't the case, much like with Angelina, but I just think it's going to be a rough time for the Batu tribe. I'm not going to lie. All right. Now for our final vote out of the day, it's the Sela tribe. We're down to 7 members: Christian, Ozzy, Rick, Savannah, Sari, Emily, and Jenna. Now let's see the breakdown. So we still have our pairs, Christian and Emily, Sari and Ozzy, and Rick and Savannah. I do think Christian and Emily lean towards working with Sari and Ozzy, and Jenna's kind of in the middle here. She doesn't have a duo, but she really likes Savannah. And ever since Sari kind of, got in with her with the Joe vote, she really likes Sari too. But, Jenna's kind of looking around and she knows that she's not like in a duo. Sari, however, her main target, now that she's kind of working with Jenna, she doesn't trust Jenna, but she will work with her for now because she does see that Jenna is like a big presence in the camp, right? But Sari would prefer to get out one of Rick and Savannah. Preferably, she'd like to get out Savannah, but one of the two is who she'd really like to look at. Now, Jenna, again, looking at how there's a bunch of duos, would rather be in a duo with Savannah than with Rick. And so with talking with Sari, she wants Rick to be the vote out. Now, they kind of agree, okay, we'll get Rick out, but, Rick is known as this idol king. So they're a little worried that he might find an idol. And so Jenna goes up to Savannah and she kind of tells her the deal. It's like, it's gonna be between you or Rick. You gotta vote out Rick if you wanna stay safe. And Rick kind of picks up on this too. So it's gonna be between Rick and Savannah. And it's really just a matter of, does Rick have an idol or not? And he doesn't. And so we will read off the votes. Rick, 1 vote Rick, 6 votes left. Savannah, 1 vote Rick, 1 vote Savannah, 5 votes left. Rick, 2 votes Rick, 1 vote Savannah, 4 votes left. Savannah, 2 votes Rick, 2 votes Savannah, 3 votes left. Rick, 3 votes Rick, 2 votes Savannah, 2 votes left. Savannah, 3 votes Rick, 3 votes Savannah, 1 vote left. Rick, 4 votes Rick, 3 votes Savannah. That's enough. You need to bring me your torch. Rick, the tribe has spoken. So I have Rick going home here at 19th place, right before the swap. So he doesn't have a super great time here at the beginning. Honestly, he probably would have gone home sooner if the Vatu tribe wasn't such a disaster. But he has some chance of getting far. Like, it's not impossible, but it's just, his beginning is not super great. For his numbers, his average placement is 15.07. His mode is 22nd place, which he got 7.33% of the time. His median is 15. He won a total of 3 times out of 600, giving him a 0.5% chance of winning in total. He got to the final 2 10 times out of 600, giving him a 1.67% chance of getting into the final 2. He has a 30% chance of winning in the final 2. He has a 39.67% chance of making the merge, and he has a 4.20% chance of making the final 2 after making the merge. His chance of getting voted out at any given placement is 17.064%. So here's what his graph looks like in total. We can see that when we don't factor in relationships, that seems to be when he performs the best, which I'm not really surprised about. It does seem like, kind of based off the friend or foe interviews, he was kind of sketching a lot of people out. He was smiling too much. Don't want to do that. But in terms of just what his skills are, it seems to suggest that he does a little bit better than everything in total. His all percentage are pretty similar to his big brother and his original relationships. It seems like his original tribe with relationships, he does similarly at the beginning, but it does kind of plummet down once we reach any kind of swap. I'd imagine Savannah probably helps with that. That's kind of my guess. Whereas with Big Brother, he does a lot worse at the beginning, but then kind of makes up for it in the, I don't want to say end game, because his end game for second and first place are pretty similar, but at least with this kind of 10th through 4th place, he does a little bit better. His largest chunk is still in this pre-swap original tribe era, but it's pretty similar to everything besides the late merge and the finale. And then when we look at this pie, the kind of early merge is where he tends to land in. Now, when we're looking at our percentages, oh, I messed that up. Anyway, Canva doesn't allow me to use decimal placements, and so everything's out of 1,000 here. So if you were wondering why, that's why the numbers look like that, that's why.
Anyway,
when we look at his percent chance of going home at any given placement, he certainly fares a little bit better than everyone else who has gone home so far. And I would say, like, right here, right during some kind of swap, I think that's when he does the best. But it does tend to rise once we reach this kind of merge area. I'd say he's most in danger at the beginning or at the very end. I think right here, he might be able to kind of blend in or, I don't know, play the middle, I'd almost think. Like, there's just bigger targets around him. When we're looking at him compared to the rest of his tribe, we can see that he's very close with Savannah. I think it's very up in the air if he goes home or if Savannah goes home. Here I have Rick leans towards going home, but I think just as easily Savannah could also be in that spot as well. Everyone else is doing pretty decently well. Ozzy, Emily, Sari, and Jenna are all kind of in the same spot. And Christian, I feel like, is the safest. And I think that makes sense. He just seems like a really likable guy. But it's really between Rick and Savannah here. Now, how can Rick win? I think getting on a starting tribe with Savannah was very lucky for him. I also think that him and Christian will vibe pretty well, and so I think in terms of the starting tribes, this is one of his better scenarios, to be honest. I don't think he's as big of a threat as he would have been a few years ago, and so, you know, I think he could kind of just play into being this unassuming person, but he still has like the skills to do well, if that makes sense. I think he could be a good middle person between the new school and the old school players. I could see him working and vibing with both sides if there happens to be kind of a new school, old school divide. And I'll be honest, I don't know Rick all that well. So I might be underestimating him. I don't know. His weaknesses is that he does seem to be putting off some people during the pregame. People are talking about how he's smiling a lot, how he feels like he's trying to be like overly pleasant. And so I think his perception going in is like kind of schemy. And, you know, with it being so short and the turnaround between vote outs being so quick, I think that could ultimately hurt him. I also remember watching those interviews, and I'm pretty sure that both Emily and Ozzy kind of separately said that they were already like annoyed with him. And so them being on his tribe probably doesn't help all that much. I also think his biggest hurdle is just going to be how I don't really think anyone's going to like truly vouch for him. Like I could see Savannah like being on his side, but I also don't think Savannah's going to have like a lot of sway with people, so I don't really think that's super worthwhile. I think he'll just be an easy name to throw out because no one truly like cares to keep him. Like there's other people they'd rather work with, and I think that might be his undoing. Is just this idea that he's an easy name to throw out. He's not really connected with that many people, and the people who he is connected with don't hold like a lot of power or don't view him as like their closest ally. That's my read. And so we are going to end there right before the swap. We'll see how well these predictions have gone because we'll see the first episode. And who's to say, maybe I'm a genius and I've predicted so much stuff. Or maybe the person that I ultimately predict to win will be the first boot of the season. Who's to say, really? Maybe Rizzo will get the Billie Eilish boomerang whatever and get a full ride to the final 6. Who's to say? Who's to say?
I don't know.
But I hope you enjoyed. And I hope you found this interesting. And I hope you tune in for my other parts. This is already very long and I only went through 6 people. Bye.